Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
So, do you know the difference between dreams and fantasies? Well, I'll tell you. Let me tell you. I only ask questions that I know the answers to. That's not true, but to this particular case. So fantasies are something you just enjoy fantasizing about, like, oh, you just go and, but you have no intention of doing anything about it. They're wonderful plays of consciousness, they're entertaining, but you're not going to go off and, you know, I don't know, swim every ocean in the world. For me, it was figure skating. I have the worst ankles. I can't figure skate at all because my ankles just give out. But I used to have fantasies all the time of being this incredible figure skater. I came up with the best routines in my head. You guys do that? Just, it's so fun. But I'm not going to do anything about it. Dreams are something you do something about. Dreams are this incredible thing, this incredible pull that you feel towards something, and you're willing, where our theme this month is work, I'm willing to take the effort, and it takes effort because we haven't done it before. A dream is something new, something that we haven't done before. If we've already done it, it doesn't feel like a dream, it just feels the same old, same old. A dream is something new. It inspires us, it gets us going, it gets us moving, and we're willing to take new steps and pull ourselves out of our comfort zone to actually achieve those dreams. So I want you to think about dreams that you've already achieved. So you may have different experiences with past dreams, dreams that you didn't get and you just decided, maybe I didn't have that big a dream, that particular didn't mean, and I let it go. Maybe you've had a dream and you fulfilled it. You did it, it's done, and you've moved on. And then some dreams you've had, and it's now become a way of life. So maybe you had a dream to have children, and now you have children, and it's just a way of being. Everyone has different relationships with different dreams. So I just want you to just check in with past dreams that you have, just to remember, we've all been doing this. I'm talking to a group of people who've had a lot of life in this room. So I know that you have a lot of your own material of what dreams have been for you. Dreams, very much like I love that reading today for many reasons. It's actually made me laugh, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But this thing about prophecies, you know, they come and go. Everything comes and goes, but what lasts is the love. Dreams come and go. Dreams excite us, and what they do is that very excitement is what puts us on a path to do things we wouldn't normally do, to go past our comfort zone, so we're growing and expanding. But the actual fulfillment of the dream, it either becomes a part of us in the eternal sense. So like if you have children, or if you had a relationship you really wanted to have, or heal a relationship with your parent, that's eternal. But that holding on, that moment, that like, oh, I've reached the mountaintop, I got what I want, that's very temporary. We all know that. That comes and goes. Dreams can come and go. Even like having children, you get really excited about having children, but then you're in the mundane of raising children every day and making sure their meals are met and all their activities are done, and then it's like not like this exciting dream, it's just like, how do I do this every single day, right? It's not as exciting. Dreams kind of excite us, push us beyond our boundaries. So today I'm taking a little bit of a right turn, left turn, a turn of some way. So we've been talking a lot about working in our own lives. Today I want to talk about community. Big reason why is because we're at our 9th year anniversary, and of course I'm thinking about it. And dreams always involve other people. And so I want to just, you don't have to answer this, but I just want you to say, when I asked at the beginning of the service to connect with a dream or dreams that you have, what I wonder is, was one of your dreams to be part of a spiritual community? Like, is that a dream that's important to you? That you, like, it may not be all your main dream, but is it a part of a dream? Not just being in a spiritual community, but participating in a spiritual community. For me, I'd really anchored my life in God in the early 90s. I did my spiritual practices every day. I did work that felt in total alignment with what I believed. Oh, I'm sorry, but it's the weather outside. It's so exciting. We have weather in Livermore. I was doing my spiritual practices. I loved my job. It was in total alignment with being in service. So I wasn't looking for spiritual community to help me find my way spiritually. Everyone's different. But I would listen to the tapes. Reverend Michael Beckwith is a minister down in Los Angeles, and I was in Virginia, and I would listen to his tapes, and they were so spiritual. You know, you could feel presence pouring through. But I also would hear the community in the background. Yeah, amen, woohoo. And I thought, wow, he's speaking from this mystical level, and all these people are getting it. And I want to be with them. Because for me, my own personal self that became very, very important to me. I did my own spiritual work. I didn't need other people to do my spiritual work, but I wanted to be able to share it with people. I found there were a lot of people, most people I could not share my journey with for whatever reasons. I mean, I could, but I wouldn't get anything back. And I wanted to be part of, my life spiritually was so important that I wanted to be part of a community that it was their life too. So I moved across country, did the same job on the West Coast that I did on the East Coast, working in a psychiatric hospital, and got involved at Agape. When you become a member, you just make an agreement to walk in Christ, whatever that means to you, with each other, and that's it. We don't say anything about what you believe. I'm like, well, that's why I don't know what you believe. Which is, so my point is very open, very flexible, very liberal, and I went to Sunday school to 6th grade, so I had a child's perspective in a very open community, and that was it. So when I say I wanted to be part of a spiritual community and moved myself across country, I was confused a lot because I thought I didn't have any preconceived ideas because I didn't think about it at all. But I realized as the more I was in community, I had all sorts of preconceived ideas of what it means to be in a spiritual community. And I say that because as we're talking about this today, the invitation for today, I'm going on a retreat, silent retreat this week. We have a fabulous guest speaker next week, so I'll be back in 2 weeks. And I want to be in dialogue with this community we did hybrid, I haven't talked about this with the board, but we did hybrid services about this space. I would love to do a hybrid town hall after service, just hearing from you. What is it that you want from spiritual community? So I'm inviting you to go into reflection with me as we are continuing and having a wonderful opportunity to recreate. We always have this wonderful life of recreation because we are creative beings, of what it means to be in spiritual community, but that's sort of objective. What do you want from when you come to a spiritual community? Like, do you just want to come a little bit or a lot, or you want to participate? Why? What is it that's pulling you? What do you want? Do you want a community that's really involved in social justice? Do you want a community that's involved in service to those who are unhoused or being hurt? Do you want a community that's really focused on spiritual growth, on meditation? What is it that you're looking for? Do you want a community that basically you feel like we all have the same beliefs, or do you like to have a lot of different beliefs within the community? There's all sorts of ways to look at it, and some of you have been in spiritual community for years, and you have a sense of what you want from spiritual community. Is what you have wanted in the past similar to what you want now? Or is there something new that you want that you have never had before? I think it's so exciting to be in the question. I love learning, and I'm in this learning process myself. I'm re-asking the questions myself. Because what I found is that sometimes I've been in 4 different communities. 4 communities before this one. Is that right? Yeah. 4 communities before this one, and they're all different, and everyone has assumptions, And I get sometimes, and I'm looking like, well, what do we want from spiritual community? What does that mean? Today, more than ever, my brother even asked me this question, my beautiful brother of great questions, saying, well, if people are doing things different, what does that mean for you? And I said, I don't know. What are you asking me these things for? I mean, I was just watching this talk on how people are doing jobs differently. The idea of you go to one job and you stay in it for 40 years, and that's gone. So as the whole world is changing how we do things, and so as spiritual community, we are co-creators. That's one of the things we know in this teaching is we co-create, we participate, we listen. What's this idea that wants to come pouring through us today as spiritual community? So I came up with sometimes, so I live my life by listening and following, but sometimes when I don't get things, I just move, because just by moving, it shakes things up. So I just made my decision. I wanted to get a PhD. This was just a few months ago, and it seemed totally right. And this is the great thing about moving towards a dream. I got things from all different angles. No, this is not the way to go. There are so many people, the market is flooded with PhDs. They expect you to do work for no money. And I just kept getting this, no, you don't want to do this. But by making those steps forward towards the PhD, I got a clear no from Spirit, listening. Oh, I'm going to do this. Nope. Spirit saying, no, don't do that. But I ended up taking a class that I never would have taken if I hadn't started this journey. And so I'm currently taking a class at the Orthodox Institute. This is in Berkeley, Graduate Theological Union, just so you know, people ask. It's like a consortium of 7 different schools. So it's mainline Protestant school, seminaries, Catholic. They also have Islamic, Buddhist, Jewish, Orthodox. I mean, it's great. And you can take, whatever one you join, you can take classes from all of them. Love it. So I was talking to the Orthodox guy, and he said, we have this class coming up, and cost $2,500. I said, no, thanks. And he said, well, you can do it, audit it, and give a love donation to the Orthodox Institute. So this beautiful Lighthouse community, thank you to our board, is paying for giving the donation to the Orthodox Institute so I could take this class. The question is why am I taking a class on Orthodox Christianity? Question I've had for myself. I've been very drawn to Orthodox Christianity, not because I have any desire to become an Orthodox Christian. There's a lot of beliefs that I do not like, but I'm still drawn to it. And I'm in this class and I'm understanding, because I am asking the question, what's the way forward? And it's hard to know the way forward until you have a sense of where you've been in the past. And I don't really, as I said, my church was sort of free. So I never really had much training in roots. I don't know, maybe many of you know the roots. I didn't know the roots, and I'm learning them. And it's fascinating. Oh my gosh. Even they used to do all the preaching outside. It all happened outside. Ministry used to always happen outside. And then how it transferred to becoming an inside thing. Just little things like that. Well, I could go on. I was just about to go off, but I won't go off. But here's what's fascinating to me. They fought a lot. They were fighting. I mean, I'm going to, here's a quick overview of, and it's just we don't like this. And when they fought, when they didn't like each other, they'd exile each other. Father Maximos, who wrote beautiful spiritual stuff, he got his tongue cut out and his right hand cut off. And then that side would kidnap the Pope and torture the Pope. I mean, when I say, they really believe strongly in what they're saying, and I'm reading it really carefully. I'm like, what are they fighting about? I don't get it. And they explain it, and I'm looking it up. I'm like, I still don't get it. And so So looking at that's why I laughed when I heard this, because one of their main things is we want to stay true to the apostles. And what was this? Be patient and kind, not jealous or boastful, arrogant or rude. And I'm reading about this whole history of the beginning of the Christian church wanting to stay faithful. And I'm like, it's a lot harder. Great ideals, it's a lot harder to live. So why were they fighting so much? And it's actually these questions that help. So it was all Catholic. Catholic and Orthodox were the same. I don't know if you know that. For 1,000 years. And the intention was, the reason why we have this rigidity, which I never understood, is the ideal was to have a whole universe that believed the same thing. They wanted to have a whole earth that practiced and were in alignment, were homogeneous in what we believed and thought. So it became very important that the teaching was consistent. That if you had this person teaching that and this person teaching that, then you don't have the homogeneity, and then you have all these problems and conflicts. So they had to really get clear on what every word was, because literally a lot of the fighting was over 3 words. In fact, and I was trying to understand the 3 words. It's very subtle. So I brought it up in class. I'm like, I'm not getting this. And so he explained it, what these 3 words meant. And then I happened to talk to someone and the teacher's Orthodox, and I happened to talk to someone later about the same phrase, and this is a Western Christian teacher, and they explained it, but from the Western point of view. And they both had just assumed their points of view were the correct points of view. And I thought, wow, 2,000 years later, same thing, same biases. This is fascinating. And the idea of how rigid do we want to be and how open do we want to be? We have that same conflict today. How much do we want to be clear, and this is what our teaching is, and we don't want to stray from it too far, to it's all God, what does it matter? It's all good. And where are we on that? And if you have a spiritual community, and not just, we're not talking about the Lighthouse, but these are discussions that CSL has all the time. How rigid do we want to be about what we teach? This is what we teach, and how open do we want to be? We don't chop people's hands off. We have evolved from that. But we do, there's a lot of energy around it. So at first I was reading it, and I was sort of looking my nose down at it and recognizing all these fights they're having. It doesn't matter. Love just is. No matter what you believe, love just is. And so these are silly fights. These are silly arguments. And I was having this, I've been in the greatest discussion since I've been in this class. I was having this discussion with one of my colleagues, like, love just is. Do these battles, these controversies that we have even matter? It all passes away. We heard it today. We love that Corinthians. Just love, be patient, be kind, it endures. Don't fight for what you believe in, just be. But if we just loved, women wouldn't have voices today. People of different gender identities would not have the freedom they have today. We would just keep old. We've had to evolve, and the way we've evolved is people have had to fight for ideas that are not very loving in this world. These things actually do matter. I came to the conclusion the battles, some of them are irrelevant and some of them are incredibly important. If we want to create heaven on earth, I'm like, the way we're creating heaven on earth is not just through spiritual or realization, but through evolution. So I brought this conversation up with the professor. I said, well, why? I was still struggling with why. Okay, I can understand you believe, but this went on for hundreds of years, these battles, and really mean. And he said, well, there's 2 reasons why, his conclusion of why people get into these battles. And the first is identity. This is my identity. This is who I am. And if you believe that your identity has no value if somebody else believes something different, then that means that your identity no longer is significant and important. So you're willing to fight for your identity. Oh, and by the way, Orthodox churches, I thought there was Greek and Russian. There's 72 versions of Orthodox, just like we know there's Catholics and a million Protestant denominations and Mormons, and there's so we splinter off all the time. When someone believes something different than what you believe, does that lessen your own identity? So if you have a teaching that you go, that teaching is like, this is my teaching, like it feels so good, I'm just so in alignment with it. So that's my identity, and if someone has a very different view, does that threaten your identity? This is powerful stuff. It's the whole thing that sports teams are based on. People go to see their team. They say, this afternoon, I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm guessing millions more people are going to be watching football games than are in churches. because their identity, it doesn't matter what their political affiliation, gender, race, culture, it does not matter. This is their team. It's an overarching, and it feels good. You're with your people, and you're rooting with your people. And then if you're rooting for the opposite team, and you're the minority, you feel it. And sometimes you get pushback for being a little different. Homogeneous countries, in fact, have much less violence. I have a lot of Japanese in my family. Japan has much less crime. They're homogeneous, much more they tend to believe and have the same cultural understandings, and everybody grows up with these assumed cultural understandings. There's no one pushing against you. There's not a lot of different points of view, so it's more peaceful. The moment you have different points of view, it gets uncomfortable. You start to, I don't like that. Identity. So the question, when I say, what is your dream for spiritual community? How does identity play a role? How does that spiritual community connect with your identity? I know for me that's a big question. It's a deep question. Like, who am I, and how does spiritual community reflect my identity? And am I comfortable with people who might identify differently than me? How open is my heart to different identities? Am I threatened by different identities? What is your dream for spiritual community? Your dream, not anyone else's dream. This isn't about a package dream of spiritual community. What is your specific dream? He said the other reason that people get into battles, and I think this is a really big one, is he used the word salvation, which is a typical Christian word. But looking at if what you teach is the source of enlightenment, if you're going to be healed, whether you're going to have a better life, then what you teach is very important. And so when we come to whatever teaching that we come to it because we probably have experienced healing. We've experienced something transcendent through this teaching. And so we can get very attached to this teaching. And we know this is what the whole idea of proselytizing is. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. It works so well. You should see the healings I've had. You got to do it too. And you got to believe it, this, and this. For this healing to happen, you have to believe these things, and you have to practice this way. You have to say words in this way. The thing they are arguing about were 3 words. You have to say words in the right order. You have to say the right this or that. How important is the teaching in your world, and does it have to be the right teaching? And this is where it gets tricky, because the teaching that we have here, it's called Science of Mind. And I had one of my great friends, she became, second from the top. And she declared something, and it was an interesting declaration. Ernest Holmes, who founded the teaching, said, I am open at the top, but these are our beliefs. Like, remember I said the church I grew up, they didn't even have beliefs. It was just like, whatever you want. There's beliefs that we have here in Centers for Spiritual Living. And so what she said, because this is the problem we have all the time in a teaching like ours that's so open. Everybody's doing everything. Everything's good. And it gets almost like the teaching itself gets diluted. So she said, okay, we're open at the top, but we're closed at the bottom. We actually do have a teaching that we are teaching here, and that matters. That's our foundation. And so when we come into a community, we say, this is our foundation. This is where we all meet in this foundation. And then from that place, we allow a lot of freedom. And within that, even that foundation, there's a lot of different interpretations. They were talking about even at the beginning of Christianity, there were already a million how people interpret it. They kept the biggest problem was how people were interpreting things. And they stopped saying, you don't get it right to interpret, only the church gets to interpret. Because it gets too confusing. As one person said, if everyone's interpreting whatever they want, then it's just a big mess. So we have to have one interpretation. Well, people who are drawn to this type of community try to tell them that. So I've had to ask myself, where do I land on that? This starts to get, and I'm asking, and I won't spend a lot, we're going to have then conversations after church. I won't spend a lot of Sunday services because it's kind of, is it personal to you? I'm just going to say one of the reasons why I'm saying I'm not going to be talking about this on Sundays in general is because in my 22 years of being a minister, twice I've done a theme around community at 2 different centers, a month theme. Both centers, the attendance for those 4 Sundays went way down. I thought, isn't that interesting? But I get it, because it feels like you're talking about community and not yourself. And that's why I'm asking you, this isn't about what other people feel. It's not about what the Lighthouse feels or Centers for Spiritual Living feels. It's about you, because a community is made up of individuals. And it makes no sense to have individuals who don't know why you're here. And I'm saying that as somebody who got totally immersed in a community before I had any idea what I wanted from that community or what I was expecting, and I got very lost and I got very confused because I didn't know. I hadn't thought I was like, I don't know. Why is everyone so different? Why are the people who believe in oneness all arguing with each other? I didn't know. And so over the years, the life has demanded, like, okay, is spiritual, being part of a spiritual community important to me? How important is it to me? Am I willing to invest time, treasure, and money? We have people in this community who invest so much, and my bet is they get so much out of the community because they're giving of themselves so much. You always get so much more when you give, right? Yeah, Jerry knows. Jack's always funny. On the services where he doesn't do much, he's like, yeah, it was okay. I'm like, that's just because you weren't participating. If we go to another church or something and he's not doing anything, it always makes it more interesting when we're participating in a community. But you're not going to participate in a community if you don't feel like it's serving you as an individual. You're not going to participate in the community for our sake. You're not here to make Lighthouse happy. You're here to fulfill something within you. So these are really good questions. Where are you in terms of how rigid or how open you are? I've been listening to a podcast, and I'm going to wrap it up with this, because I'm not ending with any answers. That's why I say at the beginning I had the answer, ending with questions, so we can, in October when I return, get into the exploration. But I've been listening to this podcast called We Can Do Hard Things. Now, I must say, because I have to give a caveat, when I say I listen to the podcast, I've probably listened to 5% of the podcast. So someone was telling me about this crazy podcast topic that they had. I didn't listen to that one. I haven't listened to 95% of them. But I've really enjoyed the ones I've listened to. And I was trying to figure out why, because a lot of times the topics they're talking about are things I've thought about. A lot of times I just want to go and, like, no, I want to start teaching. So why do I keep listening to it? And what I found, and I think this is part of what I'm learning about community, is they have a lot of feminine energy in this podcast. So the main person is Glennon Doyle. She wrote a book called Untamed Heart. Sarah Paulson's going to play her in a movie about this book, Untamed Heart. It's about learning to untame herself, that as a woman she had to be really tamed, and now she was coming free. And then her wife is Abby Wambach. Abby Wambach is the highest scoring has scored more goals of both men and women in professional soccer. That's her wife. And then her sister is Amanda, who is a mother and was also a lawyer. And there was the podcast that grabbed me. And like I said, they have a million podcasts. I think they've done things like this in the past. But they did a podcast where they all just there's something called 16personalities.com. Anyone can do it. I think it's basically the Myers-Briggs thing. And they just did it on their own. No, it wasn't a sponsoring or anything. They just, for fun. And they spent 2 podcasts talking about it. And why I loved it is because they were all 3 very different. And what I heard was such respect and appreciation and value for each other. And I thought, wow, that's really beautiful. The sisters, so the one sister is a lawyer. She's very articulate. Here's what I believe. Glennon she said, well, I'm more of a feeler. She goes, I can't tell you why I think certain things I think. I can't go do, but I know that I know what I think. So what they were saying was, for the podcast, they make every decision together, and they recognize they have these two different styles, and they totally trust one another. So they've made an agreement, and they said they make decisions together on everything. Like they said, if there's 2 exclamations or 1 exclamation, to the detail. And they have an agreement, though, if one person vetoes, so if the lawyer, through her reasoning, gets to like, nope, that's not going to work, I veto it, they don't do it. If Glennon, through her feeling and intuition, is like, I don't know why, but no, they don't do it. So they both have veto power, and they respect it, and they don't challenge it. One of the things Glennon said, I'm so grateful someone doesn't ask me to articulate why I think what I do, because I can't do that a lot, but I know I feel something. So her lawyer sister respects that. And so they said they've had no trouble. They've been able to make all the decisions because they respect one another, and they only veto when they really feel they need to, and they've never felt regret. I thought, wow, what if we did that? If we really recognized that we are in a community of very different people, the way we approach things, and the way we respected each other. We actually do, and I'm not saying we don't do that, but it's becoming clear, like it was just got really clear how much they intentionally knew their differences, valued them, and made space for those differences. Awesome. And there's one other thing that I really loved about this podcast. Tells me what I like about spiritual community, personally. This past week, they had a psychologist on talking about raising children. The first one was okay. The second one was great. It was really good. But Glennon said the reason why she liked this psychologist is because the psychologist she had just read her book. Oh, it's great. This is great information. She said, but the part that really got me is you said, you have 3 kids and you only practice this the third of the time. Like, she's imperfect. She's trying her best to do it, but she fails a lot. And, part of what I was reading of the past of churches is this idea of perfection. We have to do it right. And it goes back to this idea of teaching. If I don't say the right words, I'm not going to be saved. If I don't say the right words, I'm not going to be healed. If I'm not going to say the right words or think the right words or do the right teaching, something's going to go wrong. So it's really, really important that I do it right. And then we get this really strong idea of perfectionism. And for me, when we hear that thing, the Corinthians, about love, it's not about perfectionism. That love is eternal. It is always there. It does not demand us to ever be perfect because human beings are imperfect. And that immediately takes us into a much gentler, kinder place. So allowing for people to have different personalities, different perspectives, different gender orientations, different racial orientations, different cultural orientations, I find for me, that's a really valuable part of a spiritual community. I find for me, people being imperfect in their striving for their dreams and striving for their healing, and being gentle and kind with people and our own, lots of imperfection here, and our own imperfections, and not expecting perfection. Those are some of the qualities that have come up for me about what I want from a spiritual community. I want to have dreams. I want to aspire to greater yet to be through teaching, through learning, through understanding spiritual principle. But I also want to know that people have different interpretations of spiritual principle than I may, and to allow space for that. I am going to fall short over and over in how I live spiritual principle, and I want to have space for myself, compassion for myself, and compassion for others as they fall short. Like, that's just inherent in how we are learning together. We are learning, and we are compassionate for the places where we fall short. So I invite you, as we're reimagining yet again who we want to be as a spiritual community, how important is spiritual community to you, and if it's important, what is it that you want? Not anybody else, not what I want. What do you want? What are you looking for in a spiritual community that you would want to participate in and get excited about and show up for, because it really mirrors your own spiritual journey and your own spiritual growth. Can you go on that exploration with me for the next couple weeks? Thank you. Happy anniversary, Lighthouse. So we're going to go into prayer. And how I want to go is, last week we really focused in on allowing ourselves to be the center of God's love, which we always are. And today we're just expanding that a little. And I just want you to think of about 3 people. I'm not rigid. It could be 1 person, it could be 20 people. But to think of 3-ish people that you really want to hold in prayer today. Whether they're healing a physical health challenge, an emotional health challenge, whether they are grieving something, whether they are celebrating something. They've had an amazing something that happened this week, and there's just this love that you want to celebrate in this in prayer for this person, or give thanks, just feeling so much gratitude. Whatever is arising, I want you to think of those 3-ish people in your heart right now, and I want you to, and yourself, so hold yourself and these 3-ish people. This is your community right now in prayer, and I really want you to hold them close in your heart. Really hold that light and that energy. So the prayer, though it is generic, it is for all beings, and it is specifically for the 3-ish people that you're holding in your heart. I'm just going to take a moment, too, to get connected. And if there's space big enough, I invite you to include the Lighthouse community with your little community here of 3 or 4 people. Just the generic Lighthouse community. No one specifically, just the Lighthouse Center for Spiritual Living. Include that also in your heart energy. Connect with it. And so let us now move into this wonderful consciousness. This consciousness that was before time began. This consciousness that preceded all phenomena, all the galaxies and billions of stars. This consciousness that preceded the Milky Way galaxy, the evolution of this earth. This consciousness that is eternal and forever love. This love that is the beginning, Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the ever-present love. That is who each of us is all the time. This love that is what called us forth into our human incarnation, and this love that walks with us every step of the way through our human incarnation, and this love that carries us to the next incarnation. This love that never deserts us, never abandons us, never rejects us, that we are, to whom we are never invisible. It always sees us, cares for us, loves us. This love that is so beyond our human understanding, because all this love that we feel for ourselves is for everyone. Just to be in awe of the awareness that all this love that is given towards us is given to every being on this planet, and all sentient life forms. Every atom and cell, love itself, the infinite love, intelligence of the universe. Let us just open up in awe. And as we feel the infinite and eternal nature of Divine One, we know that you are right where our beautiful friends are, these people that we're holding into our heart today. And for the Lighthouse community, for this beautiful, sacred love that is healing exactly what needs to be healed today, that is softening, that is caring and gentle and kind. This love that is joyful and playful and celebratory. This love that is so full of creativity, possibility, vision. This love that is everything. This love where we just can't help but feel infinite gratitude for this love that is right now pouring itself into our friends, to those we are holding close in our heart right here and right now. We see, we feel, we know this love is answering every person's need in our heart, specifically for them. Not our desire for them, but their divine desire is being fulfilled as every person that we're holding in our heart. And we are holding that consciousness for ourselves and for them, and we feel this connection that cannot be broken ever. For who is healed and brought together by this divine love can never be separated, can never know death. It is eternal and forever. And as we hold this for our friends and for ourselves, we hold this for this beautiful Lighthouse community, for those who have come before us and those who are on their way to the Lighthouse community, included in this present day Lighthouse community. This love that brought all of us, that is the source and sustenance of why we are here, what has called us into being as a community. We are here to become even more of that. We are being called even now to become more of what we've already been. And we are here to answer that call, to feel the call and the inspiration of that dream, because we are getting clear on what the dream is for ourselves. Spiritual community. It is the answer to our own individual calling. Spiritual community. It is the answer. It is here to say, yes, it is possible. It can be done. That great amount of love, that all-inclusive, all-seeing, all-knowing love can be done, that infinitely generous, infinite kind, infinitely creative. It is alive and awake here and now as this beautiful Lighthouse community, and we celebrate who we are and who we are becoming today. And each and every one of us and our beautiful friends that we hold in our heart are part of this through this prayer for all eternity. Let's just breathe that awareness in. For all eternity, this love, this connection that we have made here today, love without end. It is done. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. And so it is.
I walk in God in all I do. I walk in God in all that I say.